Ladies and gentlemen, we come to you with a much more serious episode of Sports Ramblings. It has been a very sad day. As you can see, Tim over there has a very sufficient summary of how we're all feeling right now. Tim, how are we feeling right now?
Salty AF, I'll tell you that much.
Welcome to Sports Ramblings. We're actually not going to be serious. We never are. I am your fearless leader, Mikey. That is Tim. And this episode is brought to you by touringisrael.com because the only place you will find more salt is at the Dead Sea. I wish they would actually sponsor us. That'd be interesting if that happened. So as you can see by the little scroll bar at the bottom, Notre Dame's not ranked anymore. Tim, why is Notre Dame not ranked anymore?
Well, we saw the same movie again Saturday night. Big game. Georgia's in town under the lights, and we come up one stinking point short.
For those of you who don't understand Tim speak, Notre Dame lost a game that was very winnable. Again.
Yep.
Tim, so Brian Kelly 1-9 in his last 10 one-possession games, 7-12 when both teams are ranked. Are those numbers good?
No, especially not at a place like Notre Dame when you're expected to beat ranked teams.
So, yeah, so we're just gonna. I mean, obviously we're just jumping right in. LSU beat Chattanooga, whoop-de-doo, an SEC powerhouse beat an FCS team. That is all we're going to talk about LSU for tonight until we get to the previews. The real story, there were some other stories, but we're, of course, if you can't tell by this, and then that, and then the other thing behind him, and a bunch of other stuff, a very heavy Notre Dame focus on this show. And Notre Dame lost. And not only did Notre Dame lost, the game wasn't the worst part of it. People talk to me like, yeah, Notre Dame played a good game, whatever. But what was really embarrassing was like, man, it looks like a road game for y'all.
Mm-hmm.
The stands looked red, Tim. What happened?
Oh, dude, it was crazy. Like, so I kind of started to get an inkling, like a sense beforehand that there were going to be a lot of Georgia fans here. I kind of knew that coming in because this was the first time ever that Georgia has played in South Bend. So I was like, okay, there's probably going to be a good Georgia contingent coming up because they're going to want to see Notre Dame and whatnot. A lot of them have never been here. So I knew that coming in. But then I started seeing a lot of them walking around on like Thursday and Friday afternoon. And then I'm watching the Cubs play at home on Friday night at Wrigley Field, and it looked like half of the stands there at Wrigley was red. It looked like all these Georgia fans, and they started chanting UGA, UGA at Wrigley Field. And that's when I was like, oh boy, this could be worse than I thought. And then I go out to one of the finest establishments in South Bend, Indiana, the Linebacker Lounge, on Friday night. Great place if you haven't been there. And
endorsed by Sports Ramblings, I'll tell you that right now. Endorsed by Sports
Ramblings. Great place.
They should sponsor us.
I'll talk to them about that.
Tim, please talk to them about sponsoring us. We get like 20 views a video. It's lit.
It's super lit.
Okay, continue.
But so I go to the linebacker. I go to the backer, and there were, and I think maybe like it was maybe like more than half the crowd there was Georgia fans, and they're all chanting and singing and all this stuff. And that's when I was really starting to realize, man, like there's gonna be a lot of red in that stadium. And then of course I actually walk in on Saturday night. And that was one of the first things I noticed was like, oh my God. Like, it was like, so like from my side on the student section, looking out on the other side of the stadium, it was like almost that entire sideline was red. And it was like, I have never seen Notre Dame Stadium being invaded like that before. And then, of course, all night long, they were all just chanting, UGA, UGA, let's go dogs, and all this stuff. And it was hard to hear like our own fans on Saturday night. So, and I think I saw like I think the final number was like there were over 40,000 Georgia fans there, which was more than half the crowd.
It's almost that's about what's Cavassi, like 80 something, 90 now with Crossroads. So we're talking like 60-40 split here.
Yeah.
Notre Dame, Georgia.
This is at home, mind you. And like it was like I kind of, for those of you who saw on Twitter, I tweeted about this after the game. That was maybe one of the most embarrassing moments I've had as a Notre Dame fan, because
that's saying something too.
Yeah. We've had some embarrassing moments
in our lifetime, especially.
Yeah.
So,
but like the thing here was that this was one of the biggest games on our schedule, easily. And this was a game that we had looked forward to. I know I had looked forward to this game for a long time, since like they announced this game a few years ago, because all right, this is gonna be a big opportunity for Notre Dame to play an SEC team and see how we do. And so this is people knew this coming in, that this was gonna be one of the biggest games on our schedule this year, and we couldn't even fill half of our own stadium for this game. And I know a lot of people were telling me I think it sounded like a big factor was that that's because tickets were going for hundreds of dollars on StubHub and whatnot. And so it's a lot of Notre Dame fans were I can't pass this up. I'm gonna sell my ticket for $500 or whatever it was. But it's okay, you're trying to get a buck out of this, but obviously Georgia fans showed that they were more than willing to pay that price to come hundreds of miles to come see their team play. And so the fact that we allowed that to happen, that we were just so many Notre Dame fans were obviously just I'd rather make a couple $100 out of this than go watch my team play. To me, that's pretty embarrassing. That's pretty embarrassing on our fan base as a whole, that we put the almighty dollar before supporting our team, and it clearly had an effect on the game. You could just tell. I could just tell being in the stadium that the number of Georgia fans there, it clearly had an impact on how the game was played. And so to me, it was just embarrassing. And I just really feel like Notre Dame fans should be ashamed that this was allowed to happen, because it was absolutely ridiculous.
Ramblings, ladies and gentlemen.
Ramblings.
It's in the name. So we hit on a lot of stuff there. And definitely, you looked on TV, and first of all, red does pop out more against the crowd, but still, not every Georgia fan was wearing red. I can guarantee you that. Black or white or something else. So you just watching on TV, it's is this a neutral site game? What is going on here? And to what was said, so I've been to plenty of big games in my life. I was fortunate enough to, always have season. I've been fortunate enough to our family to always have season tickets to LSU. And I've been to LSU Florida games, LSU Bama games in Death Valley. Games arguably bigger than Notre Dame Georgia, because, back in the mid-2000s, LSU, Florida, and Bama, that triumvirate was clearly a national title determining game. And when I tell you Death Valley, the only Bama or the only Florida fans you would see is that tiny-ass corner in the end zone that the NCAA requires, and then some people up in the frickin' space station in the nosebleeds, and that's it. And to some extent, I've always kind of thought, never complained about it, always thought like, man, we give our, the away fans a little too much space. Like, they have a much bigger corner in the end zone than other teams would give each other, as well as, they get a much bigger position of the upper deck, or I guess would be like, the 90s addition to the stadium. So at first I was thinking like, what, shame on the administration for selling that many road tickets. But then it also came down to the fans, and the fact that fans would care more about, I'm sure many of you have seen the video. It's like a parody of Rudy and some Notre Dame fan is like, Coach, I want a Georgia fan to have my tickets, I gotta pay off my CDU, and like a bunch of BS like that. Like, yes, it's funny, but at the same time it like actually did happen and all that, and to an extent that a home game was not really a home game. And then, if these Notre Dame fans, if they just don't want to go, I will go. I will, trust me, I will find people that will go to a game. Like, I will get random ass LSU fans, say, hey, come with me to South Bend. It's much better than watching us play Chattanooga. Let's go to South Bend and cheer on Notre Dame because, F Georgia and F the SEC East. There's one team in the SEC that is good. And I could have filled up those 40,000 seats. Maybe not 40,000. I could probably have gotten, I'm going to say, realistically, I could have gotten 5,000 people if I tried really hard. But the point being...
Just pull out, like, the phone book and you're calling up every name there.
I'd go down the street. I'd go knocking on doors. I'd find a way, like, I'd get some hobnobbing people to just pull up a jet at Baton Rouge, and I'd just go around the tailgate around LSU's campus being like, get on the bus. We got a navy blue shirt for you. We're going to a better football game.
Yeah. They're coming to see Notre Dame.
And the crazy thing is, I saw on Twitter, there were hundreds of Georgia fans that got to Notre Dame that had already paid for tickets, that were promised tickets, that didn't get tickets. So as bad as it was, it should have been worse. That's how many Georgia fans cashed out.
I never heard that before. That's crazy.
So, first of all, there should have been more Georgia fans, or should have been, or there were more people there willing to go. And also, we kind of texted about this after the game, Tim and I. But, like I said, a lot of me growing up was always LSU home games. And I've been to plenty of road games too. And how it usually works out is when you're playing someone bad, not a lot of people show up. The stadium's like half, 3/4 full. And everyone will leave at halftime or 3/4 because traffic back from Baton Rouge is atrocious. And, you got a reservation at Ruth's Chris or something like that. So that's, your shitty FCS, Sun Belt, MAC type teams. Then you have, your conference games. The stadium will be full, but, is LSU really going to play a 4/4 game against Vanderbilt if Vanderbilt comes at Death Valley? No. Or, Kentucky or someone like that. No, the game's usually over by midway through the fourth quarter. People start to leave, all that too. Notre Dame has sold out for who cares number of games. So, whenever I'm here in South Louisiana, unlike Tim may have had a similar experience, although not as much in Chicagoland, where there's plenty more Notre Dame fans and alumni. But here in South Louisiana, I meet someone, whatever. I went to Notre Dame. Oh, in Crowley? No, not the high school in Crowley. University of Notre Dame. Like, oh, like their jaw drops or whatever. They asked me, how's the weather? It must have been hard. How the hell are you a chemical engineer from there? How's the football team? Is it fun going to football games and all that? What has never come up in a question out of the bajillions of questions I've ever been asked? How's Notre Dame's sellout streak going? And every time I've mentioned, hey, Notre Dame has like the longest sellout streak in the country, people just literally do not give a shit. They'll start talking about UL's game or something like that. No one cares about the sellout streak. So you know what? If we only sell out 95% of our stadium and don't have to play a neutral site game at home, as a fan, I don't give a shit about our sellout streak. Like, it's not worth having the freaking state of Georgia migrate north as a revenge against General Sherman to beat us in a football game. Like, the administration, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but Schwarbrick and the administration and Notre Dame's always like, oh, we have a big sellout streak. We're so good. Everyone loves us. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And everyone is like, so?
Who cares? Yeah.
I mean,
Did we win? At the end of the day, that's the big question. Did Notre Dame win?
yeah, people look at me, they're like,
Move
well,
on.
you still haven't won a title since the 80s, so
Yeah.
good job. And then on top of that, even when we do have a packed crowd, like, the fans are so subdued. Like, they're so quiet, and they're like, good third and one conversion there, or something like that. And whereas I have seen more enthusiasm from a half-full Tiger Stadium when LSU was clobbering Ole Miss than Notre Dame in their biggest games. And I think, honestly, we can, we can and we will crucify Brian Kelly and the athletic department and all of that stuff about the product on the field. But as a whole, the average Notre Dame fan is usually good, but it does not provide the advantage that you will see in Bryant-Denny in Tuscaloosa, in Death Valley, in wannabe Death Valley, in the Swamp, in the Shoe, in College Station, you name it.
Big House. I mean, you just go down the line.
Pretty much every big name, big or Power 5 school has a more influential fan base on average than Notre Dame. I'm not saying Notre Dame fans do not have good games as a whole. There have been some. Our freshman year against USC, we held them scoreless in the second quarter against interim coach Ed Orgeron. Thank you, USC, for being dumbasses and not hiring him. And the crowd was actually into that defensive game. And that
our sophomore year, the game against Michigan, that was actually very.
I mean, although it's easy to be excited about a shutout, but what I'm getting at is Notre Dame fans, like not the student sections. Student sections are always just ridiculous because it's a fact of life that students drink way too much, care way too much, and don't care what other people think.
Yeah.
But the Notre Dame fans kind of have this inverse relationship, like opposite of what the rest of the frickin' country goes through. Notre Dame fans, oh, we're playing Navy. That's such a nice and traditional game. And, oh, it's going to be so family friendly. Let me bring little Jimmy here for his first Notre Dame game or whatever. Meanwhile, at LSU, it's like, they're playing Tulane. That's dumb. Bob, you want tickets? Let's get hammered and go watch LSU score 50 against Tulane. That's what happens. And then big games, Notre Dame, Georgia. Ooh, look, my ticket's going for $500 on StubHub. Let me pay off my Sea-Doo, like the video says. Meanwhile, at Auburn, hey, Paul, we got some, look at the tickets for the Iron Bowl. They're going for $50 bajillion on StubHub. Man, fuck the Alabama fans. They can take my seat from my cold dead hands. War Eagle. That's what normal fan bases do. And then, whenever it's a big third down, the 90,000
stadium shakes.
The 90,000
you can see the cameras on TV shake from how loud it is.
The 90,000 jort-wearing Florida fans are making more noise than the minimum number the NCAA allows to give you Seminole fans when Florida is playing Florida State. That is how it normally happens. But Notre Dame, Georgia, this game is obviously the blurring example, but it trickles down to more effect here and there. It's not the same. It's like, oh, we're playing USC and we could beat them and get a huge upset, or this could help us make a case for a good bowl game, or God forbid the playoffs or something. And there's just a couple fans like, oh, I can actually hear people. Okay, well, oh, look, they got their playoff normally and whatever. Meanwhile, in the SEC, where it just means more, as some hot chick reminds us every commercial break on the ESPN stream online, that it just means more to these people. They yell. No one has a voice in the Southeast on Sunday morning in church. The priest and the preachers, the congregation, please sing up, and you have the guys and the girls and everyone just hallelujah. They can't even get their voice out because they were just absolutely bananas, and may have stopped Tennessee from converting a third down in Gainesville or something like that. You know, it makes sense. More people go to the bigger games and are more active there. And meanwhile, from what we saw at Notre Dame, Georgia, that's not the case. It's the opposite. There were more away fans. And you know what? Like I mentioned, a bunch of schools: LSU, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State. You know, Big 10, Big 12, SEC. The Pac-12 doesn't care about football. Some ACC teams. You go to a road game at them, and there's not that much room for you. You know, you're in the minority. Like
you're in the nosebleed.
The largest away crowd I've been at a big time school was at Ole Miss before they expanded their stadium, and there was like some bleachers in the end zone, so there was more of us than I would have expected. But also that was the year LSU clobbered them like 52-3, and Zach Mettenberger knelt 3 times in a row on 1st and goal after a long run, and Les Miles got pissed at him. Anyway, the point is, you know, that's about the biggest away crowd I've been at, aside from LSU at Vanderbilt. You know who has 50-50 crowds at home? Vanderbilt, Pittsburgh, Boston College, Wake Forest sometimes. You know,
maybe
teams,
Stanford, maybe.
Yeah, West Coast teams, it doesn't count because they don't care about football. So, yeah, you know, USC, Stanford, UCLA, all that, Cal. Cal's not going to have a full house. Cal's going to have the same problem with Ole Miss this week, and we'll get to that later. You know, they have the split crowds. Pittsburgh, because they decided to play in a pro stadium, only sells out whenever Notre Dame goes to town, and they're in the situation we are. But the point is, Notre Dame football is supposed to be, we want it to be, it has been up until recently. You would think you would go to a Notre Dame game and you would, you know, it wouldn't be the same, but it would remind you more of an Alabama home game, a Florida home game, a Florida State home game, an Oklahoma home game, than it would a Boston College or Pittsburgh home game. Than a Vanderbilt home game. Have you ever seen a picture of a Vanderbilt stadium whenever Tennessee comes to town? Yeah, it's 50-50 at best for Vanderbilt.
Half of it's burnt orange.
I mean, you know, that bright, disgusting orange, as Sandra Bullock says in the Blind Side. Whatever her exact...
I will not wear that gaudy orange.
Exactly. So the point is, Notre Dame, the crowd at Notre Dame this weekend looked a lot like a Vanderbilt crowd and not like a team that is, you know, debating Alabama whether or not they really have the most championships, and says we have more Heisman winners, we have Newt, we have the Horsemen, we have Lou Holtz, and, you know, we have Rudy, and naming a bunch of stuff that was a bunch of has-been stuff, but, like, we're almost there again. And whenever you see a 50-50 crowd, it's really hard to convince people, when this may be the only Notre Dame game they watch all year, that we're almost back, or we are back. Yeah. I mean, winning the game would help too. We haven't mentioned a single thing that happened on the field, but
yeah. Well, like you said, Mikey. I remember you telling me in our conversation after the game, losing the game was bad. Like, losing the game was bad enough, but the crowd shed light on a much deeper problem that is persisting in the Notre Dame fan base. And I know this is hard. This is hard for a lot of Notre Dame fans to hear. But the fact of the matter is like exactly what you were saying, Mike. It seems like it's the opposite at Notre Dame from what it is at the rest of the country. When at some of these other high-profile programs, it's whenever there's a big Saturday night game, people are chomping at the bit to get a ticket to that game. You know, whereas here at Notre Dame, I feel like there are too many fans that are like, oh, it's a night game. It's going to be really loud with, like, Georgia people there. I'd rather come for a game against Temple where it's a nicer atmosphere. It's like,
screw the atmosphere.
Do you want to win the game? I mean, listen, Mikey, have you now seen the 30-30 Catholics versus Tom?
Yes, I watched it the other night. I can talk. We can talk about that later, just to shed some light on something positive. But like, you watched those games, and like, so
the crowd was insane.
So a bit of context.
Absolutely insane.
So one of the administration of my high school, the admissions guy, he went to Jesuit in New Orleans, and as you know from our experience in Stanford Hall at Notre Dame, like every other person from Notre Dame from Louisiana graduated from Jesuit in New Orleans. So he was a freshman in 1988, and one of his best friends was like, "Hey, come on up to South Bend. Can get you into the Notre Dame Miami game." And he still talks about it. When I'm in high school saying, "Hey, I got into Notre Dame," he's like, "Man, that's awesome. I can still remember in 1988 when, the Catholics versus Convicts game, when I went and met my best friend from high school at Notre Dame, and it was amazing." And like,
I mean, it's arguably one of the greatest game ever. Like,
yeah, like there's that, and then at the same time, and then like my uncle, because my grandfather was superintendent of education, came down when LSU played Notre Dame in like the 70s, and Louisiana's governors marched out with the LSU band and the team out the tunnel wearing like gaudy white suit. It's like in the 70s or something. It was like all pomp and circumstance or whatever. And then Notre Dame kicked their ass. And he still talks about that. My uncle Tim, not that Tim, but Timothy Michaud, it still talks about the games. Like, I would love to go back and all that. Or my cousin's husband, who came when LSU played in the late 90s. He's like, "Man, that was awesome. That was a great game, even back then." And that was when we started to suck. That was after Lou Holtz, but it was still a great game. And like, from my point of view, from my day-to-day experiences, it's all with people that are like, "Oh, Notre Dame was always on TV," or the lucky few that have gotten to go to games throughout the decades or whatever, and they talk about like it was some of the best sporting experiences of their life. And I can say I've been to many a great sporting experience, but Notre Dame home games, it's hard for those to crack the top. Like, none of them stand out. Whenever I think of the best experiences I've been to was, more of them have to do with LSU than Notre Dame just because of the volume. But like some of the Cubs games we've been to, the College World Series in Omaha, the BCS Championship where LSU won, the BCS Championship where LSU lost, that one's in the bottom 10. Home games against Alabama for LSU, road games. I honestly,
even like Notre Dame basketball games, I feel like
like against Duke that one year, or whenever we were all on the floor and all of that, and just the fact that Notre Dame football is struggling to provide me with memorable experiences because either we lose, the games don't mean something, or it's like, well, this is embarrassing. I can't even hear our fans, and we have a 3rd and goal with 10 seconds to go that we could either win the game. We're trying to stop. We're having a goal line stand against one of the top 5 teams in the country, and no one seems to give a shit. Well, that's fun. Stuff like that. So it's just embarrassing, and like, how many instant classics has Notre Dame been on the losing side of the past couple of years?
Way too many, I can tell you that much.
The Texas game last year was one, although famous last words.
Clemson.
Famous last words. Texas is back. Rip. Yeah, we'll see how they fare against.
Go Terps, right?
Go Terps. Yeah, I don't. As much I would love for Texas to beat the Trojans, I just, something tells me that might not happen.
Yeah, and that's in LA, dude. That's gonna be a hard. That's gonna be a bloodbath. That's gonna be like a 65-34 game. Yeah.
Like, oh my god.
Oh man.
But like you want, part of what you need to have a successful program is a desire to have a successful program. Why did LSU fire Les Miles and decide we need to try something radically different by having Ed Ogeron be the recruiter and then, dishing out a ton of cash to the 2 highest paid coordinators in the country, Dave Aranda and Matt Canada? Why did Georgia fire Mark Richt, who seemed to be, was literally this close to a BCS championship against yours truly, and maybe we could have been embarrassed by Georgia then instead of Alabama in 2012? Why did Nebraska kick Bo Pelini to the curb because these fan bases are not content with mediocrity. You know what Notre Dame fans are? Notre Dame fans are scared of the Charlie Weiss days returning. You know what? Last year kind of, gave them shivers or whatever, but the Notre Dame administration and a good bit of the fans are too scared to take risks. They're content with going to the frickin' Pinstripe Bowl every year or the Music City Bowl or whatever. And you know what? Like, oh, he made it to the Fiesta Bowl and lost again. How many, all the BCS and New Year's Six Bowls we've lost in past years?
Notre Dame, ever since the BCS started, and then now the New Year's Six, Notre Dame has never won one of those bowl games ever.
And we've lost.
And that's been about 20 years now. About 20 years, and Notre Dame has never.
How many has Notre Dame been in?
Yeah.
BCS Natty, Brady Quinn, Jamarcus Russell, and 2 Fiesta Bowls against Ohio State. Am I missing anything?
One, yeah. There was also like a Fiesta Bowl against State in there. And guess what? Oregon State kicked our ass in like 2002. Yeah. Oregon State. Like, come on. Like,
so
it's, like you were saying, like, it's like, look here. You go from like the days of the Catholics versus convicts game, and like the LSU game that your good friend went to back in like the 70s, and like they still talk about that to this day and how incredible of an experience that was. How did we go from that to now, where our own supposedly beloved stadium that we all claim to hold near and dear.
Yeah, we spent $440 million on.
Yeah, or we allowed it to be invaded by basically the entire state of Georgia. I mean, to me, and people, I don't think many Notre Dame fans want to admit this, but that game Saturday night proved that Georgia fans cared a heck of a lot more about their team than we did about ours. And to me, that's really embarrassing when we love to stick our necks out there and say, like, we got the best fan base in the country. Go Irish.
How many people believe us when we say that?
By the way, the entire state of Georgia came to our game, and you could barely hear our own fans there. I mean, to me, it's embarrassing. It just seems like too many Notre Dame fans are content with just being okay. They're just content with being okay, and too many of them, not all of them, there are a lot of them that are sick and tired.
People watching this video all agree with us.
Yeah, there are many that are just as sick and tired of this as we are, but there are also a heck of a lot that are just like, I'm okay with going, 8-4. I mean,
I can take young Bobby to the Pinstripe
Michigan,
Bowl.
They're like a really good team. It's like, no, this is a program that has won 11 national championships. You would think that we would have a little bit more pride in our program than what we're showing right now. I mean, Georgia, how many titles does Georgia have? Not as many as Notre Dame. That's all I know. And look at how many fans they brought to that game.
How many national championships has Georgia football won?
Siri, help us.
Unfortunately, I don't know about national championships.
You were useless. Oh my God.
Breaking news. Siri does not help.
Let's go to GeorgiaDogs.com. 1942, 1980, and then they claim 3 more. So they have 2.
So at most 5.
At most,
probably 2.
At most 5, 2, and their last one is from 1980.
Before our last one.
You want to talk about has-beens? I mean, we just say it with me, y'all. It just means more, and Georgia fans kind of proved that. It may not mean more, it meant more than to a lot of Notre Dame season ticket holders. I mean, what do you want?
In this game doesn't even matter for Georgia in terms of the SEC standings. It doesn't even matter because it's not a conference game.
They could have lost this game and still made it to the national title. So I've looked at Georgia's schedule. First of all, SEC East, absolute dumpster fire all around. They're not going to lose the cocktail party. They're not going to lose to Tennessee. I mean, Kentucky, South Carolina, Mizzou? You think Mizzou's going to beat Georgia? No, not a snowball's chance in hell. And Georgia's crossover games, their traditional one against Auburn. Auburn doesn't look like
that might be tough, but
that's the hardest game they have the rest of the year. Right now. And you know who their other crossover game is? Mississippi State. Not LSU, not Alabama, not even A&M, who's going to be, fighting for Kevin Sumlin's job, albeit, with to no avail. But still, they don't have their crossover games are easy. Their division is easy. Georgia Tech at the end of the year, is Georgia Tech going to give them any trouble? No. Georgia, mark my words, watch Georgia finish 12-0 until they meet Alabama in the SEC championship. I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised. They could trip up against Auburn. Leave it to the SEC to have Tennessee or Florida beat someone they're not supposed to, and then lose to someone they are supposed to beat. It's the SEC East. Crazy shit like that happens every week, it seems like. But I would not be surprised if Georgia wins out and makes it the SEC championship game. And quite frankly, like you said, this game had no effect on that. They could have been 11-1 going to the SEC title game, lose to Alabama, get in frickin' line, everyone does it, and then Georgia...
And go the Sugar Bowl.
And, the Sugar Bowl is a playoff game this year, I think. But, yeah, they'd be in a New Year's Six type
Orange Bowl or something.
Yeah. It's infuriating because, and meanwhile, us here at Notre Dame, we can't say, oh, we lost the game, but hey, we won our conference or anything like that. No, we have 12 games, and if we don't win them all, we're probably not in the playoff. So, there's that. And these Georgia fans, the amount of cash they dished out to go all the way to South Bend, and I don't blame them. Going to Notre Dame for a home game is one of the best experiences you can ever have as a college football fan. But, how do we let that many of them buy tickets? You know what you do? You only let a couple of them come. You let, 10,000 or whatever the NCAA requires you to let. Maybe a couple StubHub people, but not half the frickin' stadium. And then you know what you do? You have Georgia people going to their athletic director Bob, I really enjoyed going down south, and I'd like to schedule them more often. And you know who that benefits? That benefits both of us a lot more. It's just, and you know what? It we've been saying. It seems like the average Notre Dame fan, and definitely the administration, is so content with Pinstripe Bowl appearances.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of BS.
It's all about money. Way too much of it is about money.
You know what makes more money, though? You know what makes more money than the Pinstripe Bowl? The
New Year's Six game.
The stupid golden trophy that is the playoff championship or whatever. Let's look at the University of Alabama. Since they've hired Nick Saban, out-of-state enrollment has skyrocketed. And out-of-state students, because it's a state school, pay about...
And I can vouch, there are a lot of kids from the Chicago area going to Alabama now because they're getting so much scholarship money.
Yes, exactly. And so these out-of-state fans that want to go for a better party or football atmosphere, they're lured in because Alabama is always winning in football. They have to pay $15,000 extra a year. So you multiply that, whatever, and you know what? Paying Nick Saban however many they pay a year looks like an incredible return on investment. And you know what's happening in the background? Alabama's admission requirements are going up. They're dishing out full ride scholarships to one of the smartest people I know who left my high school, which is the best high school in Louisiana, to go to one of those math and science magnet type schools. And then he's at a full ride at Alabama for physics. And guess what? You know what? Because Alabama, it's a, you don't want people it's not causation or whatever. Bullshit, it is. Alabama hires Nick Saban. Alabama wins more football games. Alabama gets more out-of-state students. Those students pay more money. Alabama's wealthier, more scholarships, better students, better school. It's not rocket science. As a matter of fact, that's why Notre Dame's a powerhouse. You want to know why Notre Dame is a nationally acclaimed university? Want to know what separates Notre Dame from Georgetown or Boston College or Creighton in Omaha or, Washington and St. Louis? You know what separates that? It's Notre Dame having from back in the day, having to play all across the country and winning championship after championship, getting that lucrative TV deal and all that, where, you know, we're the only game on and everyone saw Notre Dame football, and more people went to Notre Dame. The more people that want to go to your school, the better your school gets. You know, and that's, if show this to the administration people, I like, this is why we are frustrated, not just because we lost football games, but because we know, as Notre Dame fans, knowing our history, because Notre Dame fans know their history pretty freaking well, that Notre Dame was built as a university on the backs of Knute Rockne and Frank Leahy and Ara Parseghian, Dan Devine, Lou Holtz. Notre Dame is an academic powerhouse because of football. And the administration
and Father Ted Hesburgh utilized that.
Exactly.
You know? And it feels like we're getting away from what really made Notre Dame, you know, and enabled Notre Dame to grow as much as it's grown. It's like we're getting away from that, and that's what's the most frustrating thing.
Yeah, it's like we've abandoned our identity, not just on the field, but on what football has done to bolster the academics. And I'm sure if you talk to Father Jenkins or read any of his, you know, dumbass press conferences or whatever, it's like, we're focusing on academics and we need to diversify and save the world and this and the new School of International Affairs or whatever the crap they're doing now or whatever. You know why Notre Dame is nationally acclaimed and why I went to Notre Dame? It's not the freaking Jenkins, whatever the hell's going to go on in Jenkins Hall. It's, hey, it's a Catholic school with a kick-ass engineering program. It's the best business school in the country. It's one of the best architecture schools in the country. One of the best law schools in the country. How did we get to that point? Money from football. It's what Alabama's doing right now. And why, if things continue in 50 years, Alabama's not just going to be a better football school than everyone else. They're going to be about one of the best academic schools in the country. And you know what? I'm glad, when colleges make themselves better. But the fact that we are falling behind in this arms race, not just the athletic one, but the academic one that goes hand in hand with it, is what is just that's what's dumping lighter fluid on this fire. That's what is getting me pissed off, and I'm sure you too. It's that the administration is content with just, you know, cashing their check at the Pinstripe Bowl, and I bring that one up a lot. No offense to the Pinstripe Bowl, but you are supposed to be Notre Dame's bad year, not their average year. Let's just get that straight. But like it's like, oh, we sell out all these games, and I'm like, yeah, you know, it makes more money than a bunch of sellouts. The purse you get, you know, the extra cash you get whenever you hoist up a crystal football, or you still get one, but it's not the thing anymore. Or when you get a bowl of oranges in Miami, or something along those lines. Like, that is what makes football programs great. And I just thought of this right here. One of the football programs to really ascend in the past decade or so is Clemson. You look at Clemson, they've beaten Notre Dame, poor us. They've won their conference. They've made it to multiple title games and won them. They've beaten Ohio State multiple times. They've beaten, like I said, LSU, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, if I'm not mistaken. Like, you just name a bunch of big-time programs, and Clemson has beaten them coming out of nowhere in the mid-2000s, and now Clemson is the creme of la creme. They are contending not just to, you know, be a good football school anymore. They're contending to win the ACC and beyond that. And I'm sure that's helping out Clemson academically too. The point we're trying to make here is your success on the football field does translate to better academics. LSU, people were freaking out because oil prices are down in Louisiana, that, oh, LSU football might go away. That's never going to happen. But you know what? LSU's athletic department has chipped in money to LSU's academics and has kept the university afloat to some extent. And you know why that happens? It's not because LSU focused on some like expanding its peace studies program, or expanding all these arts and letters programs. Not dogging arts and letters because I don't think it's good. I'm saying that focusing on that exclusively at the expense of the athletic department is hurting the university as a whole. You know what would get this Jenkins Hall a lot more money and make it a lot more successful? If we won a natty year at least, a couple times a decade. If we made it to big time bowl games, if we went 10-2 on average, 9-3 on average, instead of this BS where Brian Kelly has to fight for his life every press conference and make himself look like a humongous jackass after every game. Like, that is what is making us mad. It's that the administration is choosing to focus on things that aren't football, not realizing that football is a better return on investment. If you don't believe that, look into the numbers for the University of Alabama. Look at the admission requirements for Alabama. You will be shocked. You will be absolutely shocked. But most of their fans still are trailer trash that have never graduated high school. Yeah, so what? In 10 years, that demographic is going to shift year to year because of how the caliber of students they're getting. Like, it's not. You just open your damn eyes, Father Jenkins, Jack Schwarbrick. Look at what's going on around you and see how badly of a position, how Notre Dame is going to fall behind because of the decisions they're choosing to make and putting up with this, lukewarm levels of success in the football program. You know what? Oh, we can't fire Brian Kelly, pay out, blah, 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 blah. Bullshit. Fire his ass if you don't like him. Take risks, go after big names with a lot of money, or take a risk on a PJ Fleck, on a Tom Herman, on the next group of 5 coach that might make it big. I mean, find an up-and-comer. Chad Morris at SMU has put together 2 50-point games in a row. What if he beats TCU and makes SMU a really powerful contender? We might want to start looking at him. I know, Baylor looked at him after their whole incident. Matt Rule from Temple that went to Baylor. That's a perfect example. We need, instead of being complacent with Brian Kelly, if he doesn't get the job done, can his ass, send his ass back to Grand Valley State D2 and take a risk on these group of 5 programs. I don't care if the fans are scared about that or scared about returning to, a bad Charlie Weiss year or another 3-9 year or whatever. You know what? 1 3-9 year that might get us back to prominence is a hell of a lot better than 7-5, for how many years in a row. So... you look at that. What was that? I want to say that, Lou Holtz, his first year here at Notre Dame, he went atrocious.
6-6 or something like that. But then after that, look what happened. It was for 8 years in a row or something like that, Notre Dame was playing in a New Year's Day bowl game. You want to talk about
almost every year.
Yeah. And so... yeah, so that's a perfect example of there might be some growing pains with a new head coach, getting a new system in, getting their guys in, but it can pay off huge dividends. And Brian Kelly has clearly been here long enough that he's proving that he's not capable of getting it done. Notre Dame is not going to win a national championship with Brian Kelly unless some miracle happens here.
Unless the SEC unless a Category 20 hurricane floods the entire southeast of the country, Notre Dame's not winning a championship with Brian Kelly.
And like you said, Mikey, this is what's so frustrating because whether people want to admit it or not, the football team is what made Notre Dame Notre Dame. Like you said, Mikey, that was a huge factor into you choosing to come here. It was an enormous factor in me coming here. I remember coming to my first Notre Dame football game when I was 10 years old and sitting in those stands and, being on campus. And I remember just saying to my parents that night, I want to go to school there because it just felt that special, and football was at the center of that. And so to see this shift that we're seeing and how we're viewing and judging our football program, it's kind of heartbreaking for me because it's such an integral part of this school and what this school has become that for us getting away from it, it's like we're getting rid of our heart, you know. And so that's what's just so frustrating, and that too many people in the administration, too many fans are just content with, you know what, we're okay with going, 7-5, 8-4, or whatever. When it's like I pop in, I've mentioned it a lot, but like I pop in the Catholics versus Comets 30 for 30, and the chills that it gives me. And this is about a game that occurred before I was even born, And I'm just like, man, why can't we have those kinds of games here again? It's so special, and like to just see us reaching this point where we're getting invaded by Georgia fans at one of our biggest games of the year. It's just really, really heartbreaking, really embarrassing, and like it's something that I really expect more out of this program, out of our fans, out of everyone involved. Because I mean, just that last weekend was just really it was almost like the last straw for me. I'm like, we're better than this. We are better than this, but people aren't treating it that way. And like people were like kind of laughing, like, ha ha ha, that was kind of funny how all those Georgians were there. Like,
it's not funny.
Weren't you embarrassed that they paid bajillions of dollars to travel hundreds of miles to come see their team play, and we couldn't fill our own stadium because we're like, oh, I'd rather get more money out of this, or I'd rather go to a nice little day game against Temple or Wake Forest. It's like, what do you want? If you want to win a national championship, if you want this program to be one of the absolute best in the country, this is what you have to do. And letting what happened Saturday night happen cannot happen. It's inexcusable. Just on all accounts, cannot happen. And I mean, it's just, as you can tell, it's really, really frustrating to me.
Yeah, if you want a nice, family-friendly, chill atmosphere, go be a Northwestern fan. We don't want you.
Go to your local high school game, by all means. I mean, seriously.
I mean, there's plenty of Group of Five or FCS schools that would love to have you. I'm sure Northern Illinois would love to have you in their stadium if you want.
Oh yeah.
Like, give me your damn tickets. I'll find someone to use them for you and all that. Like, it's just. Mm-hmm. It's atrocious. And like you said, it was kind of like, we kind of were expecting, we kind of both expected Notre Dame to lose this game. But we're not talking about the product on the field. We're talking about the fans and the stands, because I didn't have much faith in the administration. I didn't have much faith in the coaching staff. I always have faith in the players to do the best they can. But the fact that we don't have better players, revert back, see coaching staff. But the fact that this game showed that there was also an issue with the fan base is just it rips my heart out. It just fills me with anger that for some fans a Ruth's Chris steak dinner was worth giving up their tickets to one of the best games Notre Dame might ever, one of the most unique matchups Notre Dame has ever played, and maybe one of the biggest games of the year in college football. It's complete bullshit. Those people should have their tickets revoked, and they should get their ass sent down to Evans, whatever, for Northwestern. Like, that's the time that go fucking cheer for Purdue. Get out of here.
Exactly. I mean, it's like really, you'd rather get, I mean, and remind yourselves, these are season ticket holders. They are not hurting for money by all means. Mm-hmm. So you'd rather get an extra $400, $500 to go waste on, whatever it is, when you could be at a game that could possibly be featured in a documentary someday, Like, really, which has more value? Obviously, to some people, getting that extra Ruth's Chris dinner or whatever meant more to them than being at an incredible college football game.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you care more about the iPhone X and how you're going to pay for it than you do about attending some of the best Notre Dame games that are going to take place this year or any year for that matter, your season tickets need to be revoked. Like, just get the fuck out of here. Be sure to tune in for more Notre Dame Salt Week 2. Tim, I think we need to look ahead a little bit. I feel like we've beaten this horse half to death. We'll leave it breathing for when we lose to someone else, and then we can just pull it back out of the barn, grab the bats, and just take some more swings at it. Maybe we'll be able to pop champagne when Brian Kelly gets fired. I will pop champagne on Sports Ramblings, by the way.
We'll do that. If that, Mikey, how about this? We're making a deal right here, right now, folks. Deal right here. If Brian Kelly gets fired this season,
we'll do a live Sports Ramblings, and
we'll
be
do a
drinking
live
champagne.
Sports Ramblings, and we will pop champagne in celebration of that momentous occasion.
You heard it here first. It will happen, and it will be hilarious. We'll have callers too. That'd be something.
We'll take calls.
Oh yeah. So that was that. Other important things that happened. Auburn lost to Clemson. USC beat Stanford. So USC is probably back, as much as we'd be scared to admit it. They beat Stanford pretty heavily. I said it was almost a guarantee that the Stanford would at least cover. Yeah, that didn't even happen. USC has now stolen the Australian National Championship trophy away from the Cardinal. Watch out for those Trojans. That might not be pretty for Notre Dame. And then the most viewed game from last week, I saw some numbers, twice the viewership as Notre Dame, Georgia. Thank God. Oklahoma went to Oklahoma State and absolutely destroyed them. Baker Mayfield may have already had his Heisman moment if he does end up winning the trophy away from that fraud in Louisville. I don't have faith in Lamar Jackson. Saw with my own two eyes. Moral of the story, Baker Mayfield and the Oklahoma Sooners appear to have not missed a beat from Bob Stoops' retirement, beating the Fighting Urban Meyer future criminals in Columbus, Ohio, planting a flag at midfield. And the greatest thing that I saw from that was Baker Mayfield's apologies. Like, why do you apologize? Oh, I saw it made people mad. Translation, why are you apologizing? Because the administration is making Coach make me. I'm really not sorry. Y'all just are a bunch of pussies and can't take the fact that you lost a football game and I showboated a little bit. I mean, if I'm him, I'm like, that's all he did. He could have done worse. Like, UNC kicker Tomahawk chopping at Florida State, or LSU's kicker doing the shh in Tuscaloosa in the 9-6 field goal game. There are plenty of, that's pretty tame for taunting a team you just beat in their house. So, yeah. and they didn't even have to play a neutral game in the shoe. They had an actual home crowd and lost. So, sucks to be Ohio State. Let's see. What else?
That was quite a moment, though. That was the ultimate middle finger that Baker Mayfield gave him, planting that OU flag at midfield. And what was funny was I was just watching on TV today. Joey Galloway on ESPN, who played at Ohio State, even he said, you know what? I don't really have a problem with it. It's all part of the emotions of college football, and it's what makes this sport great. Yeah, so even an Ohio State alum was like, it's what makes the sport great,
The fact that people got mad about that just shows everyone's way too freaking soft nowadays. Speaking of people being way too soft, something else that made a lot of people angry in a game more under the radar or whatever, Penn State beat Pittsburgh, and Coach James Franklin said, and this is kind of paraphrasing, I might not have this quote nailed down. Tim, do you know what's about to come? Because this is a legendary.
Oh boy, I'm ready.
So James Franklin said, yeah, when Pitt beat us last year, it was like they won the Super Bowl, and good for them. I'm glad they celebrated. But for us, beating Pittsburgh is like beating Akron.
Oh.
Mic drop.
Oh.
That
is some serious shade being thrown their way.
Like, he just dunked and was hanging on the rim for like a solid 30 seconds right there. Like,
man,
that rivalry is going to get a lot more heated. But again, thanks Pittsburgh for Matt Canada. Your offense now sucks. You will they play someone this week, and they play Oklahoma State. They host Oklahoma State. That's not going to be close.
Rip.
Oklahoma State's going to absolutely destroy the Pittsburgh Panthers.
Oklahoma State's going to drop like 50 on them.
It's going to be a basketball score on Oklahoma State side. I'm like, no question at all. And then stealing this from Reddit, RCFB, Florida State, Hurricane Irma caused Florida State to cancel their football game. This is the first game the Seminoles have lost to a hurricane for about 8 years. So suck it, Miami. Florida State fans want to taunt you a little bit more to add fuel to that upcoming rivalry game. Is it this week or is it? I think it's next week. Something like that.
Well, this week? I saw today that game was supposed to be played in Tallahassee, but it got postponed to a future date. Not sure when that's going to be.
Like sometime in November.
Yeah, but obviously they're still trying to, recover and make repairs from Hurricane Irma, which is, in case you've been living under a rock, has,
smart move, rocks that might protect you from the hurricane. You might drown if there's flooding, but the Paul Patrick Star house concept, you're going to be safe from the debris. So living under a rock might not be the worst thing, but as Tim was saying, unless you've been living under a rock, a big hurricane hit Florida. Thanks to Cuba for taking one for the team. The hurricane definitely lost a lot of strength over Cuba, preventing a terrible disaster. So thanks, Castro. Don't rest in peace. You still suck. We still hate you, except Colin Kaepernick. You can be buddy-buddy with him. Let's send Colin Kaepernick to start a football team in Cuba. I bet they'd start him. Anyways, thanks Cuba for taking one for the team. You definitely saved the state of Florida from a lot of extra trouble.
And it's really bad. It just goes to show you how powerful this storm was.
Yep. So yeah, still Florida by no means it didn't dodge the bullet. The bullet still nicked him, but it wasn't as deadly as it could have been. Again, thanks to Castro in his burning the pits of hell right now. So let's look forward to this week. A game that will take place in the state of Florida. Tennessee goes down to Florida. There's always been a heated rivalry. For some reason, Florida is still favored, despite the fact they couldn't score an offensive touchdown against Michigan.
It's got to be the home factor. It
has to be the home factor. I think the Volunteers have a more than solid chance of winning this on the road in Gainesville. It's not going to be pretty. There's nothing good's going to come out of it because both teams are still probably going to want to fire their coaches more when the game is over, no matter who wins. I think Butch Jones could win something by winning this game. He could, cool off his seat a little bit. Whereas I think even if they win, the Florida Gators are still going to hate Jim McElwain and want him gone. So, Tim, what do you think about that game?
Yeah, it's just kind of a mess at those two programs right now. We've touched on them before. Florida still doesn't have any semblance of an offense. As we saw in the Georgia Tech game a couple weeks ago, Tennessee's defense doesn't look very good either. So, I mean, yeah, like you said, this is kind of like a big game for two coaches that could be on the hot seat, similar to what we saw with Texas A&M and UCLA a couple weeks ago. That the winner of this game comes out a little better. But the loser of this game, that seat is going to get a lot hotter, especially considering that, this is a big rivalry game. And so, if Florida loses this game, they're like, why are you losing to Tennessee at home? We've been owning Tennessee the last, decade. Why are we losing them at home? And if you're Tennessee, if you're Butch Jones on the other side.
Florida can't score. How on earth did you lose to them?
Yeah, how did you lose to them? Why is Florida still kicking our butt when you've been recruiting, when you've supposedly been recruiting so well these last several years? So this is really a big game for both of the head coaches involved. But I'm kind of with you, Mikey. I think that I really don't think that Florida has enough strength on offense to win this game, even though it's at home. I still think that Tennessee finds a way to get it done. I think there's a lot more promise on the Tennessee sideline than there is on the Florida sideline right now. And like I said, a lot of that has to ride on the fact that Florida doesn't have an offense. They don't have a quarterback. And that's just really been a huge mess for them so far.
So I think we're both on the same page there. The Gators are going to struggle against the Volunteers. Neither team's going to be powerful, but I do think the Volunteers will actually score an offensive touchdown and therefore have a leg up on the Florida Gators. Another game taking place, probably the only big game of the week in terms of playoff implications or whatever. Clemson goes to Louisville. Louisville playing their first real home game of the year. They had a neutral site game against Purdue that they won, and they went on the road to North Carolina, and they looked very solid there. I as good as Clemson looks, as highly as they are ranked, I've got Louisville in this one. I mean,
Really?
I could see this being a parallel of, you remember last year when Florida State went to Louisville early and Lamar Jackson won the Heisman in week 2 and had people overlook the fact that he lost to Kentucky and all that. That's what's going to happen in this game, I think. I mean, Clemson is number 3 or whatever. I don't think Auburn's all that, and they, still struggled against Auburn. That game wasn't exactly pretty. Louisville's home opener. Lamar Jackson's trying to silence haters like me who think he didn't deserve the Heisman last year. I could see the Cardinals dropping a lot of points on the Tigers, and just if Clemson hasn't rebuilt and reloaded from the players they lost last year, this is when we'll know. And even despite that, I could still see Louisville winning just because of how strong they've been in their 2 games currently and how strong they've been in the past couple of years in those early games, a la Florida State last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and and that Florida State game as well. And Game Day was there for that game last year. Game Day is in Louisville this weekend, so it's going to be a rowdy atmosphere there in Louisville. And that was a heck of a game last year too. I mean, Louisville almost won that game at Clemson last year, and that was maybe the wildest scene that I saw in college football last year. Was the scene there in Clemson before that game against Louisville last year. That was a top 5 game last year, if I remember correctly, or it was at least top 10, and that was an insane, crazy atmosphere, and Louisville only lost that game by a touchdown. So I think this is going to be a really good rematch. That Louisville is really out for revenge because they're going to feel like they should have won that game last year. So I'm really looking forward to this game, and everyone there in Louisville is too. I mean, and like we said, this could be another Florida State situation from last year where, huge game day is there, really hyped up matchup against a big time opponent in their conference. And Louisville has a chance to, really silence some haters and make a big, big statement. And on the other side, if Clemson wins this game, they can silence some haters too, because a lot of people don't trust Clemson, especially with, Deshaun Watson, like Mikey over here.
I don't trust him.
With Deshaun Watson gone and Mike Williams gone, Ben Boulware, I mean, so many guys from their title-winning team last year. If Clemson wins this game, they can take a big step forward in proving that they're still contenders in the ACC this year. So, I mean, this is just, by all accounts, a huge game for both teams in both the ACC standings and the national championship race. I don't know. I still think I might have to go with you, Mikey. I think Louisville's gonna get the dub here. I like them at home. They've played very well in big games at home, as we've seen before. So, and they're out for revenge after that tight one against Clemson last year. So, I think the Cardinals are gonna pull away with a huge win here this weekend.
Yep. And one thing neither one of us mentioned, but I just thought of, was that Lamar Jackson might have a chip on his shoulder hearing all offseason, Deshaun Watson was the real Heisman. If the Heisman Trophy were given after the whole season is over, Lamar Jackson would not have won. And I know Deshaun Watson is now, playing as we speak right now, and probably the worst Thursday night football game ever between the Texans and the Bengals. Regardless, he's not there anymore, but I'm sure Lamar Jackson wants to take out some of that frustration on Clemson, saying, yeah, sure, you should have won the Heisman. Prove it. Well, y'all can't beat me this year. Just to kind of kick a man while he's down type of deal. Or, I feel like he might have something to prove, just to silence some Clemson fans that have probably been barking at him all year, saying you didn't deserve the Heisman. I personally don't think he did, but that's got to be eating at you all off season. I'm sure Lamar Jackson has had this game marked on his calendar for that very reason. Louisville might surprise us all in the game day game. So So we've covered two of the big games. Texas goes to USC. We briefly touched over this in our rant against Notre Dame. Texas doesn't have a chance. It looks like USC's back if they ever have been. Texas is still rebuilding very much. Texas is going to get embarrassed. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game because Texas can still score points. But I just don't see the Longhorns being able to stop future jet bust Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that there, Mikey. I thought this was going to be a really good. It could still be. You never know. It's probably games, college football. Anything can happen. But when I looked at this game before the season started, I thought that this was going to be a really big marquee matchup. But then after Texas lost their opener to Maryland at home, gave up 51 points.
Yeah.
I'm like,
it's going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah, I don't think this game's going to be too much of a battle anymore. And this, Mikey, we just spent, like half of our Fighting Irish. But imagine if you're a Texas Longhorn fan right now. The last time that Texas faced USC, Vince Young was hopping into that end zone in the Rose Bowl in one of the greatest games ever to stun USC in the national championship game at the end of the 05 season. And so you go from that to 12 years later, you're unranked, you're losing to Maryland at home, and you have your own fans booing you at home. If you're a Texas fan, you got to be sitting there thinking to yourself, how on earth did we get to this point in just 12 years after winning a national championship and just 8 years after playing in another one? Mm-hmm. So, that's we love to talk about how there's a mess here in South Bend. There's another big mess going on in Austin, and I don't know if it's going to get solved anytime here soon.
Yeah, but I think the key difference is Texas has gone through Charlie Strong and is now trying Tom Herman. But let's continue talking about this game. Did you see that USC has tried to vacate their loss to Texas in that championship game because they vacated their wins?
Gosh,
so apparently in the USC media guides, they've only played Texas 4 times and have beaten Texas every time they faced off. And I thought USC was a good enough school academically to realize that whenever you get in trouble, you only vacate the wins and not the losses. You've never won a football game. It's not that you didn't play any of the football games. So, hate to break it to you, Trojan fans, you lost in a national championship game. Your athletic department might not want to claim a loss. You don't get to cheat and not claim your losses. That's not how it works. Trust me, SMU would love to do that because they got plenty of cheating. They love to vacate all of their losses when they weren't the Pony Express.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. USC's just looking for an excuse because they're butthurt in that game. Knowing that they just don't want to acknowledge that Texas. Plain and simple.
You cut out there at the end, Tim. So if you want to repeat that statement.
Oh, I was just saying that. USC fans just don't want to. They're just all in that game. They just don't want to acknowledge that Texas was the better team that night. Plain and simple. Vince Young put on one of the all-time epic performances in college football, and they just don't want to acknowledge it.
Oh, absolutely. Game that is also taking place in the state of California. Not the sexiest matchup, but you're going to laugh at my take of this. Ole Miss going to California. Tim, I want you to start because you just wait. Stay tuned, fans. You're going to want to hear this. What do you think about Ole Miss going to California?
I mean, sounds like a battle of two mediocre teams at best. Maybe Cal's a little bit better than Ole Miss, especially with all that scandal going on there with like the improper benefits and what was it like calling us like Hugh Freeze calling strippers in or whatever.
No, prostitutes, not strippers, hookers.
Prostitutes, excuse me. A whole other can of worms, right?
Frickin' toddy.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, I mean, if we're just sticking strictly to the football field here, I mean, like I said, this just kind of seems like a battle of two Power 5 teams that are rather mediocre right now. Mm-hmm. So that's at least my initial take on that game.
Yeah.
What's yours? Where's the kicker here, Mikey?
I think Ole Miss is going to give Cal Berkeley more fits than Ben Shapiro is in a speaking engagement there right now. What would just be the ultimate move of the South rising again, taking it out on California, not the North, would be if Ole Miss brought back Colonel Reb and let the band play Dixie just for this one game.
Oh,
could you imagine those Berkeley snowflakes? I mean, God forbid, just go all the way. Just bring out the battle flags too. Like just jump back to 1970s Ole Miss, just score 100 on Berkeley at their house and just trigger everyone within a 100-mile radius. Get on your airplane and get the hell back there before they call for Ole Miss to like be racist and all that. That would just be the ultimate move.
I tell you what, they might like. Oh my gosh, if Ole Miss gets that, they might not get. I mean, there'd be protesters like tearing down the stadium as the game is going on. I mean, holy cow, that seems like a recipe for disaster. There, I'll tell you that.
But this is why they should do it. They have nothing to lose. They can't go to the postseason this season. They're this close to a death penalty anyway. Might as well just go out in a blaze of glory.
Just go out guns ablazing.
It's better to burn out than to fade away. Might as well bring back, like I said, the racist Ole Miss we all know and love with the Confederate battle flags, Dixie and Colonel Reb, score 50 on the Golden Bears and their home stadium. Like I said, hand them the biggest loss they would have taken since, when Ben Shapiro gave a speaking engagement there as we're a few hours before we're recording this. Ole Miss is going to win big in Berkeley. They're probably not going to do all the stupid shit I'm saying, but that would be hilarious. Just the cultural paradigms colliding there from, a lot of Ole Miss fans I know, they're the ones saying, we're a bunch of sissies for wanting to get rid of the flag and all, the state flag and all that. Like, we need to score. Ole Miss is going to kill them. That's what I think. For more reasons than that, but that would just be an ultimate storyline. just think about it. At least
Mikey. That's just oil and coming together. That just no mix whatsoever.
Even if it doesn't happen, which it's not going to happen, it now has happened in your minds, and you can appreciate the humor and the irony that is these California Berkeley snowflakes that have caused so much tension. Even getting the failing Father Jenkins to bring it up in our commencement speech last year, hit to it, not directly quote it, but Berkeley's been a bunch of sissies about politics recently. Ole Miss is going to bring some Southern hospitality to the California end zones that they have not seen since the days of Aaron Rodgers and Marshawn Lynch.
That's a pretty good way to sum it up, Mikey.
I think Ole Miss is good. I want Ole Miss to kill them, and I
need to probably kill them.
I hope whoever their interim coaches shows the Ole Miss fans this sports ramblings and gets them fired up, laughing their ass off, and then score a hundo. Like,
oh man,
it's not gonna be good. So that's that.
Sports ramblings is now a hype video.
Sports ramblings is a hype video. It is. I mean, we got something to look forward to, and we can't look forward to our own football team. Might as well look forward to Ole Miss in the
Oh, geez, man.
The oil and water, as you said, combination that's going to happen in Berkeley. Any other matchups that don't involve Notre Dame or LSU? Because we are going to talk about those. But any other major matchups? Oh, UL Lafayette is going to Texas A&M. This is the 23rd anniversary of USL before they became UL Lafayette beating the Aggies. There's no way in hell UL is going to stop Texas A&M because they don't have a defense either. But I could see this game reminding me of a few years ago, like in Johnny Manziel's first year. A&M hosted Louisiana Tech, and the final score is like 59-57. I would not be surprised if something similar, although not exactly like that, happens to UL. I could see this game being like 55-42. Go Cajuns.
Raging Cajuns.
So, so any other matchups you want to point out aside from Notre Dame, Boston College, or whatever?
Not really. I mean, looking, like I said, I was looking at the schedule. Big drop off from the big games that we had last weekend. Just a lot of, kind of so-so non-conference games outside of the big ones that we mentioned. Definitely doesn't seem like as high caliber of a weekend as what we had last weekend. But again, I mean, hey, it's college football. You never know what can happen. Hey, tomorrow night, Friday night, Illinois fighting the Illini, traveling to South Florida, taking on the Bulls. Maybe they can pull off the upset, man.
The Fighting Charlie Strongs.
Dude, if that happens, tell you what, watch out for the Illini, man.
ILL.
INI.
All right, so that's obviously a matchup. I'm gonna watch that because it's gonna be the only game on a Friday, or one of the.
Might as well turn it on, man. Could be a big signature win for Lovie Smith. Tell you that much.
Poor Illinois. That's what they have to look forward to.
Oh man, oh man.
So let's talk about Notre Dame, Boston College. Tim,
well,
what do you think?
Outside of the two rambling, sticking to strictly the gridiron here. Boston College has an incredible knack for just giving us fits. It doesn't matter. I mean, when Notre Dame and Boston College meet, just throw out the records. It doesn't matter. I mean, they always give us a hard time. And usually that's because their defense is really, really good. And we just don't really adjust for it, which is frustrating. But, in 2012, which I believe was the last time we played at Boston College, at their home stadium, they kept it close for like about the first half. Ended up winning we ended up winning like 21-6, but it definitely wasn't a big 42-7 blowout that some people thought it would be. So that's an example there. And then obviously when we had the Shamrock series against them 2 years ago at Fenway Park, that was about as ugly of a win as you can possibly get. And again, let's remind ourselves that was a Notre Dame in 2015 that was, that still had an outside chance at making it into the playoff. And Boston College only lost by like 5 or 6 points. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that was just a very ugly win for Notre Dame that year. So, and I really don't think that this is going to be too much different. And you got to wonder how much the players are still thinking about that loss to Georgia last weekend, are still thinking about, what coulda, shoulda, woulda been, and the Boston College is going to come out firing. I mean, obviously, this is like their Super Bowl for them. That goes without saying. So I truly wouldn't be surprised if this is another tight affair that's decided by like a touchdown or 10 points or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely have the same gut feeling that you do. I did see a tweet, and I did retweet this, that kind of quantifies what we've said. The past, I think, 3 times Notre Dame and Boston College have faced off, the Vegas odds have always favored Notre Dame, and if you add those together, a combined 58-point favorites over the course of 3 games. And Notre Dame did win all 3 games, but by only a combined 20 points. Think about that. We were favored by a combined 60,
That's
and
pretty
only
crazy.
won by a combined 20. That just quantifies in the biggest way that Notre Dame struggles against Boston College. Boston College really gets up when they play us. Who knows if we're hungover from the embarrassment that was that game. Maybe we'll fill up half of Boston College stands. Like I said, that's kind of normal for them. Shouldn't really be normal for the house that Rockney built, but we spent about an hour on that. So that's what I have to say. This could be a real big bounce back game. I saw like some quotes from Drew Tranquil, senior captain, saying we're going to absolutely pound everyone else. You know what? Show me the money.
I love for that.
You can talk the talk, but if if we're 11-1 at the end of the season, I will say thank you. You are a great senior captain. I love you. We were wrong. I still will probably hate Brian Kelly, but whatever. So if he claims we can go and pound, absolutely pound these nobody teams, if we beat Boston College big, I'll be happy. I'll still be skeptical because of the big games. We'll still have the fan issue that needs to be addressed. I'm gonna start subverting the season ticket lottery and start getting a bunch of LSU fans to get on a plane every week. So that's what we have to look forward to.
You included, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'm gonna be leading them. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're gonna form an alliance like America and England in World War II. It's gonna be Notre Dame and LSU versus the world, and maybe it's gonna be a Cold War in the playoffs, but we'll get there.
We'll get there eventually.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's too much more to say about this game. It doesn't really have that many implications other than watch out. Don't chalk this one up yet, Notre Dame fans. We have reasons to be skeptical because as long as Brian Kelly's our coach, who knows what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And Boston College always gets up against us. So
Yeah.
anything else to add?
Well, I mean, I find that interesting that you mentioned from Drew Tranquil. I mean, it's like, listen, dude, I'd love for you guys to prove me wrong and go like 11-1. And it was almost kind of funny. I was thinking about the other day after some of the salt had worn off. It hasn't completely, as we all know. I thought I was thinking back to 3 years ago in 2014 when Ohio State lost a game at home in week 2 to Virginia Tech, and after that game, a lot of people were saying like, "Oh, like Ohio State, they're not what we thought they were. The sky's falling for Ohio State. They don't have a quarterback. Blah blah blah." And then guess what happened? They went on to win the national championship that year. I would love for the same storyline to play out for Notre Dame. It could. Who the heck knows? Again, it's college football. We act like we know what we're talking about, but we really don't. Because in college football, the only given is to expect the unexpected. That's the one thing that I have learned from my lifetime of being a college football fan.
Yeah, the only consistent winner in college football is Team Chaos. That's Alabama's great. Team Chaos is even better. So
Yeah.
See
Kick 6 2013 Iron.
see all of 2007.
Yeah, that's the ultimate Team Chaos W.
Yeah, so thank you, Team Chaos, for helping the Bayou Bengals that year. So, and hurting them a little bit too. Still got the ring. So, speaking of the Bayou Bengals, LSU goes to Mississippi State. Tim, Mississippi State has beat LSU how many times in our lifetime?
Once.
Twice. Only twice. In the late 90s, before a man named Nicholas Saban showed up to Baton Rouge and made the Tigers something to force to be reckoned with. And a few years ago, when Les Miles was kind of on life support, and this man named Dak Prescott, you may have heard of him. Tim, is he doing anything recently?
No, I may have heard his name once or twice.
And
I don't know.
Dak Prescott marched into Death Valley, leading the Bulldogs to the first win over the Tigers in like 20-something years. Sorry, y'all. Love Stark Vegas. Cowbells ain't going to save your ass in this one. Ed Ogeron and the Air Canada offense, as I'm hearing it called around here, is going to embarrass Mississippi State. LSU's going to win big. It looks I don't want to just say this as an LSU fan, but I've heard other people say it too. LSU might have an outside chance to be really good this year. Of course, there's the quite literally the elephant in the room that is Alabama, but one game at a time. Mississippi State has beat LSU 2 times, like I said, in my lifetime. As far as I know, I only remember one. It's not happening this year. Tigers are going to win big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think Mississippi State. I mean, Dak Prescott was pretty much the reason they were good at all a few years ago. So don't see a whole lot going their way this. So not expecting that. I don't think LSU's gonna have to sweat in that game.
Mm-mm. Nope. Definitely agree with you there. So I think we've covered pretty much everything we want to in college football. Tim, I really don't want to talk about the NFL after the Saints week 1. What about you?
Oh yeah, dude, my poor Bears. I tell you what, losing to another team from the state of Georgia the day after our game, and oh my gosh, dude, like it was literally the ending of the game was like that. The Bears have the ball, have a chance to win the game. Final play of the game, it's fourth and goal, do or die, and snap comes to Mike Glennon, and I see the pass rusher coming around the edge, just like at the end of our game, Georgia. Gets by the block. Glennon tries to scramble, but by then it's too late. Down he goes, and the Bears choke away a win that could have been a huge season-opening win for them. Still a lot of positives to take out of it for the Bears, knowing that we took the defending NFC champs right down to the final play, but it still hurts that that we dropped 2 potential game-winning touchdowns on the goal line there. That still really hurts, and I'll start to feel good once I see the Bears actually get over the hump and start to find ways to win those types of games. That's really the mark of a team that's struggling / okay, and a team that's really, really good, is that those teams find ways to win in situations like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, deja vu all over again for Chicago, Notre Dame dual sports fans.
I was after last weekend. I was just kind of done with the state of Georgia for a week.
Yeah. So as soon as we're done recording, Tim's gonna go watch his General Sherman documentary to get his hopes back up. To get a little bit of revenge there. Yeah, the Saints. It looked like they had a defense, and then it turned out they didn't. And apparently, trading away all of our good offensive playmakers is actually coming back to bite us. See Jimmy Graham, Darren Sproles, Brandon Cooks, we just hemorrhaged good players to the rest of the league. And to put in perspective how the Saints are probably screwed for this year, we're hosting the Patriots, and the thing I saw Bill Belichick complimenting the Saints on was our punter. It's going to be
that's never a good sign.
It's going to be a long season, Who Dat fans. Might as well drop the yes because we're the Aints again. So,
man.
Yeah.
These are, folks, you're looking at two NFL fans that our teams are kind of dumpster fires right now. So
it's okay. For Mikey Sports fandom, there is still hope. We gotta win the football game. We gotta beat the Bulldog, and we gotta score a lot of points. We got one team, one heartbeat. Go Tigers!
That's what we need, Mikey.
What's that?
We need more of that.
We need more Ed Ogeron. Now I can't.
We need more Ed Orgeron on a play. The Saints or the Bears.
Dude, it's hell, Notre Dame too. Maybe okay. So actually, I do want to talk about one thing. So people have asked, people at LSU, we were talking Oh, you know what Notre Dame should do? They should hire Les Miles. That's not going to happen. And you want to know why? Because Les Miles, if he takes a head coaching job, forfeits the buyout he has not received. So I don't see Les Miles. First of all, I don't think he will ever take another head coaching job. It's hard to say that, but definitely not until he gets every penny from from LSU. He still loves us, but he's gonna get his money's worth. So that happens. So that leaves like Bo Pelini. Why does Bo Pelini not have a Power 5 job? Our friend Jordan Shaw did ask us that.
I told him, dude, I mean, it's just a matter of time. I mean, back a couple of years. I mean, he's too big of a name to be coaching at an FCS program for this long, you know?
And he did get them to FCS runner-ups, too. So
Yeah.
he made it.
So it's not like he's not winning at Young State. He's winning. And I think the team's gonna take a chance on him. Texas A&M, maybe.
I mean,
This team, maybe.
they don't need a coach yet.
They don't need a coach.
We got Bebe. We got Coach O.
Baby.
Oh, dude, Coach O.
Go Tigers.
You see, that's the thing. Even if Coach O loses, he's still a very lovable guy. Brian Kelly's just a huge jackass. So,
If you haven't watched it, go watch his press conference after the game last week, and you'll see why he's still a huge jerk.
you will want to punt small children. It just makes you that angry. So, Tim, want to talk about anything else? Indians will have won 22 straight. That's
Yeah,
pretty
we
impressive.
would be remiss if we did not mention the Cleveland Indians have now won as of tonight, Thursday, September 15th of 2017. Excuse me, it is now September 15th on the East Coast. It's still the 14th back in Mikey's land. But as of tonight, the Cleveland Indians have now won 22 games in a row. That is a new American League record, and they have now achieved the second longest winning streak in the history of Major League Baseball, behind only the 1916 New York Giants, who won 26 in a row.
But that included a tie.
And yeah, here's the funny part. That winning streak included a tie in
So
there.
it's an unbeaten streak, not a winning streak.
And I've heard that back then, if they had a tie due to darkness, because like they finished the game before the sunset, and they didn't have lights back then in the stadiums. So I heard what they would do is they would replay the game the next day. It's not like they wouldn't pick the game up where it left off. They would just start the game completely over again.
That's pretty
And obviously
funny.
the Giants won whichever game that was. So, I mean, yeah. So a lot of people, there are a lot of baseball fans out there that argue that that's not really the longest win streak. So those people will argue
Those
that the
people are probably
Cleveland
from
Indians,
Cleveland, if I had to guess.
yeah, most of them I would think are from Ohio,
Especially right now.
especially right now.
So,
But
congratulations to the Windwood Indians, or however, whatever 22W sounds like. Enjoy it while it lasts, because the Astros are going to beat you in the ALCS. Astros magic numbers pretty
that's a
low.
bold. Actually, that's not a bold prediction. That's a pretty good prediction. I don't know.
An Astros Indians ALCS looks pretty likely, if you ask me. Kind of going back to your or Midwest versus Georgia sports problems. At least your Cubs are probably not going to have to face the Braves in the baseball postseason.
No, I don't think the Cubs have to worry about the Braves for the rest of the season. We're regular, and it does not look like the Braves will be participating in the postseason this year.
No,
So
I think you'll be fine.
that's something to look forward to, I guess. But speaking of my Cubs, dude, they're giving me a hard this pennant race. Last year we basically had the division locked up by this time. This year we've only got like a 2-game lead. Even though we did win tonight, we just swept the Mets, which was really nice to see after we got swept by the Brewers at home. That was not good, especially since we're in a pennant race with them. But definitely a little September than what we had last year. And those are our good friends, those dirty St. Louis Redbirds are coming to town tomorrow for a 3-game series, and they're right behind us along Milwaukee. So that's going to be another must-watch series at Wrigley Field. But it's getting down to the wire. Believe it or not, only a few weeks left in the MLB regular season, and then it's October. And let me tell you, folks, October baseball is must-watch TV. And with all the teams that we've got this year, so many stories, so many really good contenders from the Astros to the Indians, Nationals, Dodgers. Tell you what, folks, you're going to want to tune in because this is going to be one heck of a postseason, and we'll be sure to cover it more once we approach that time here on Sports Ramblings.
Absolutely. Can the Indians continue winning? Can the Nationals actually win a postseason series? Find out next time on Baseball Dragon Ball Z. So, yeah, good luck. So we had to throw a baseball little nod there. It's getting fun. We got the pennant races coming up. The Nationals have clinched their division. Some teams are close, and we shall see how it all shakes down. Tim, I think we've talked long enough about sports and ramblings. What do you say?
Well, we've done a lot of ramblings. Hopefully, we've done some sports.
Yep, that is the hope. So we're going to bring this train into the station right here. Thank you all for sticking with us this hour and 40 minutes of must-see sports television. Since, ESPN's ratings are just going down the tank. Jamel Hill just adding fuel to the fire there with her Twitter fingers. Watch out, ESPN. Sports Ramblings is coming for you. Maybe we'll get 30 views on this video. Watch out. Be sure to like this video, comment, let us know what you're doing. You can always email us at sportsramblingsshow@gmail.com. That email is probably the most dead thing since Notre Dame's title hope since the 80s. Oops. Let's see, what other jokes can I include in here? Then yeah, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. My guy on Reddit hasn't responded to me, so that's why we still have the default orange logo thingy. So I'm working on getting the channel to look a little more professional. Stay tuned with us. Hope you enjoy the video. Be sure to follow us on our social medias down here and down there. Twitter, my gaming YouTube channel that I sometimes reference sports a lot. I say Kobe a lot in my sports in warships. Whenever I'm shooting at ships, I'm going to kill them. I'm like, Kobe. And then they don't die. And then I shoot them again, and I say Kobe again. It's like shooting paper in a trash can. You just say Kobe every time.
Speaking of Kobe, he's getting both of his numbers
retired.
8 and 24 will be hanging in the Staples Center.
Congratulations to the Mamba.
Mamba out.
Mamba out. And Sports Ramblings out. Tim, thanks for joining us, as per usual. Thanks to the fans.
Pleasure.
And hopefully next week we will be able to talk about how Notre Dame broke the "we suck against Boston College" curse. I'll be able to make fun of Bulldog fans a little bit more. And that is all we've got for this episode. Be sure to join us next week for must-see Sports Ramblings. Thanks for watching, y'all.
Thanks. Go Irish.